Chapter 126, Heaven and Earth Gave Birth to Me, Sun Wukong. There was an isolated island with dangerous mountains. At the top of the mountain, there was an extremely ordinary mountain rock. Wispy clouds and mist filled up the place. Waves slapped on the shores, gushing up repeatedly. Time flowed by quietly, 1,000 years, 10,000 years glowing by like streaming water. The uninhabited island had been barren, without any grass or trees at all. However, greenery started to fill up the place as grass and trees grew. Myriad of birds flew over from the seas and many creatures started to live on this land. Monkeys jumped around amongst the forest of peach trees. Everything changed quietly and slowly. The uninhabited island's appearance went through a huge change, turning into the flower fruit mountain that was filled with singing birds and the fragrance of blossoming flowers. That rock stood on the nameless peak, receiving the essence from the sun and moon, withstanding many years of wind and rain, gradually developing a faint consciousness. It had no eyes, nose, and ears. Yet, it was born with intelligence that allowed it to sense this unfamiliar world that was filled with endless novelty. It started to question itself in its heart. Who am I? It was as if a light breeze had brushed past the silent lake, causing faint ripples that kept on extending out without stopping. Its mind started to become more active, and it gained life. It didn't know of the answer and could only watch the sky, sea, and land quietly, silently searching for an answer. However, after countless years passed by, a thought flashed in its mind and it asked itself a second question. Where am I? Wind and clouds gathered, and the world entered an upheaval. It was as if the sunlight had pushed away the dark clouds, shining the path in front. The thought in its mind became increasingly intense, and everything in the world became increasingly clearer to it. It could sense everything. This time around, it no longer continued to spend a prolonged period of time. Many more years passed by. It asked the third question, which was also the final question. Where did I come from? It started to recall its past. It was because he had seen that flowers grew from the earth, birds came out from eggshells, and monkeys grew up in their mother's embrace. It started to ponder where it came from. Heavenly thunder roared, splitting the chaos and thus separating the pureness from the turbid, dividing the heaven and the earth. Everything in the world became distinct. Ever since it thought of that three questions that seemed to be predestined, life seemed to have a meaning. The rock started to have a heartbeat, and a celestial fetus started to nurture in it. It developed 7 orifices and 8 apertures, and could actually sense everything in the world. So wind turns out to be so gentle and soft, birds chirping sound so merry, and the scent of flowers is so fragrant. In the past, it merely had indistinct feelings, but now, it was able to sense with its 5 senses. Its heart that was made of stone started to have vigor, and blood started to be channeled into it. It started beating strongly, and an entirely new and unprecedented life was born. It was extremely curious, continuously sensing this brand new world. It didn't know how much time had passed. It had been far too long, and the new life could only remember the rising and setting of the sun, the repetition of every week. It even forgot the existence of time itself. It saw islands, seas, clouds, and the sky. However, a thick layer of stone shell restricted it. Countless years passed by but it didn't move a single step. Sand and earth piled up and the mountain range kept on growing taller year after year, which brought its body gradually onto higher ground. The view it could see became increasingly further. It discovered that it was situated on the cliff of a lone peak. The surroundings were all precipice. The mountain was an island, and the island was also a mountain. There was an endless stretch of ocean outside the island. There were leaping whales and seagulls crying cheerfully. However, it was still unable to move at all. Seeing that all the lives in the world could move freely, intense fury surged in its heart. Why? It also wanted to run on the vast land like the other lives, being free without any restrictions. It felt that it had never lived. It wanted to live. However, it couldn't find a way to do so with its simple consciousness. That fury gradually calmed down, turning into viciousness that filled up its heart. It had a strong urge to break this damned stone shell and turn the world into a state of upheaval. Bearing the viciousness in its heart, it was still unable to break out of the cage it was bound to. An unknown number of years passed by, and one day, a monkey came to the mountainside. This monkey was very, very old. All of its hair had turned white, and it had a long beard that trailed down to the ground. The rock sensed a strong feeling of death coming from this old monkey, yet the waves of its vitality were extremely strong, making the rock feel a very contradicting feeling. This was a living creature called a monkey. The rock often saw them living in the forest of peach trees. They ate peaches for food and often only had 10 or so years of lifespan. However, this old monkey was different. It was really very, very old, to the extent that it felt that at the next moment, this old monkey would stop breathing. However, the old monkey continued to hang on strongly. The rock had never met such an old monkey before. It felt that this old monkey must have lived for over 100 years. How did the old monkey achieve this? A strong curiosity toward the old monkey rose in its heart. How did this old monkey break out of its destiny? Surpassing the limits of life. The rock instinctively felt that if it was able to study and find out this old monkey's secret, it might be able to break out of this stone shell and become a true life form. And at the next moment, its eyes opened wide. The moon was bright, and there were few stars in the sky. The old monkey raised its head toward the sky and cried out. It stood on the lone peak, bathing amidst the starlight. Starlight gathered like myriad rivers that flowed toward the sea, entering the old monkey's body through its white hair, strengthening its vitality. The old monkey was like a black hole, engulfing the surrounding moonlight, causing the world to turn dark. Engulfing the essence of the sun and the moon. The rock managed to comprehend this point for some reason and sank into a strange state, unable to get out. It didn't even realize that the old monkey had quietly departed when the sun rose up. Although the old monkey never came again thereafter, that old monkey's figure was embedded deep in its heart, never forgotten. It imitated the old monkey's actions and started engulfing the essence from the sun and the moon. The sun was scorching, and the moon was cooling. Two types of light shone down on its body, turning into a strange energy flow that circulated through its entire body. It was overjoyed. It could clearly feel the powers in its body becoming increasingly stronger, and its intelligence soared. If this were to continue on, then there would be one day where it would be able to break out from this damned cage. One extremely rare encounter gave it a new leash of life. The tides rose and fell, the sun rose and set. Countless years passed by. That white-bearded old monkey had long since turned into dust and ash. However, the lonely mountain rock still continued to take in the essence of the sun and moon incessantly. Its mind gradually calmed down as it accumulated powers, waiting for the day it would break out from the stone. One day, a series of terrified cries rang out at the foot of the mountain. There were monkey cries, tiger roars, bird calling. The massive mountainous island was extremely chaotic, filled with terrified cries everywhere. It looked over in surprise and saw red light soaring into the sky. Unknowingly, a red tidal wave rose from the horizon in the distance, rising to a great height and rolling toward the island. It came with a strong momentum, as if wanting to engulf the entire world completely. The world entered an upheaval as red color filled up the sky. It was as if doomsday had arrived. Wherever the red tidal wave passed by, all living creatures would be wiped out. The grass and trees would wilt, and the world that was filled with life and vigor turned into a deadly state. The fowls and animals escaped in all directions. However, this was an isolated island. Where could they escape to? Very soon, that red tidal waves arrived on the shores. Everywhere they passed by, the fowls and animals would all struggle helplessly and be drowned in them, leaving only their white bone remains behind. Suddenly, the island that was like a paradise had turned into a living hell. That red tidal waves seemed to be never stopping, heading for the lone rock on the steep cliff. They came on repeatedly and continuously. There was even a domineering will that invaded its mind, wanting to wipe out its will and take over his consciousness. Its mind suffered an intense pain, and it flew into a rage. The endless viciousness that had been suppressed in its heart suddenly erupted. Damn it! I can't break this stone shell, yet this damn thing is also trying to mess up my heart? It was infuriated, irritated, stubborn. It had a strong urge to use its fists to break this damn stone shell, turning this world that had confined it into chaos. Vicious energy soared into the sky, bursting out from its body and piercing through the sky like an invisible metal staff, stirring up the wind and clouds. That red tidal waves seemed to have gone through a great shock, retreating rapidly as if they had encountered their nemesis. Bioxnovel.com. However, the vicious energy in its heart had already risen, so how could it possibly let the red tidal waves off easily? It clenched its fists and smashed them out fiercely toward the stone shell. I want this heaven to no longer be able to conceal my eyes. I want the earth to no longer be able to bury my heart. Boom! The world shattered. A golden light pillar headed for the clouds, and mental power filled up the world, causing the three realms to seethe. An arrogant and impudent voice rang out in the hearts of all living creatures. It was a cry of joy over a new life. Heaven, earth, gave birth to me. Sun, Wu, Kong. A small and lean stone monkey broke out from the cage, baring its teeth at the red tidal waves that were backing off in horror. The stone monkey suddenly opened its mouth and sucked in. The endless suction force caused the red tidal waves to turn into a red line and rapidly swallowed into its body. Thereafter, the wind and smoke cleared up, and the world returned to calmness. Hiccup. The stone monkey rubbed its round belly. It was full. However, for some reason, it lowered its head in perplexity. Why do I have a name? Why did I call myself Sun Wukong? It sank deep into its memories, as if it had thought of something, yet it was unable to recall anything at all. Suddenly, it was as if only its lonely figure stood there in the massive world. It sank into an endless feeling of melancholy. Who? The wind blew and the world felt colder. The world came to a standstill. Bang! Feng Lin's eyes opened abruptly, ripping through the darkness like a lightning flashed across the sky. Pieces of the stone shell on his body started to fall down. He stood up, breaking out of the cage, feeling completely different from before. The energy in his body burst out in waves like erupted magma, unable to be suppressed. Even the air had been compressed to the state of distortion, and ripples extended out in all directions. The place where Feng Lin had been standing on became a huge vortex that stirred up the void. He himself underwent a world-shaking transformation. He rose up in height, reaching 1.98 meters. The genes in his body kept on flashing non-stop. Stone Monkey Gene +1, +1, +1. Psychokinesis Gene awakened, +1, +1, +1. Spirituality Gene awakened, +1, +1, +1. In the end, Feng Lin's attributes had suddenly become: Name, Feng Lin. Vitality, 88.9. Primeval Gene, Stone Monkey Gene, 10. Basic genes, monkey gene, 10, stone birth gene, 10, adrenaline gene, 1, mental gene, 9, psychokinesis gene, 4, spirituality gene, 3. Genetic potential, 18%. Chapter 127, Mythological Will. Feng Lin opened his eyes slowly, and his figure underwent a huge change. The energies in his body gushed out in waves, irrepressibly twisting the void, forming and sending out a series of seething waves that could be seen by the naked eye. The spot where he stood suddenly became the core of a tempest. Feng Lin silent looked at his two hands and into his own body. He felt that the majestic energies in his body were gushing out endlessly like spring water, seeping into each of his cells, into his blood, and into his organs. His body was steeped in energy, both inside and out, and held a tremendous amount of powers. Although his body was material, it now possessed the nihility characteristic that a certain kind of energy possessed, existing between material and incorporeality. It was very mysterious. This was energy evolution? Feng Lin was slightly taken by surprise. The change to his body was too great to the extent that even he found it to be a little unbelievable. If his entire body were to complete the energy evolution process, he'd be able to control the energies of the void and grasp extraordinary powers. This was the realm of elite cultivators. The human body was matter-based. In the beginning, it was an absolute matter, and the process of becoming transcendent would be to complete the energy evolution process. However, once each and every cell completed the energy evolution process, the human body would be able to connect to the universe from the distance, producing an ineffable connection. Between breathing, they would be able to absorb the universe's energies, turning them into powerful vitality for themselves. And as the energy evolution continued, cultivators could eventually survive by feeding on the wind and dew, breaking out of the restrictions of food. They would be capable of consuming the universe's energy as a replacement for their nourishment, turning them into energy for the human body. In the universe, the method of replenishing energy through food was considered the most inferior and inefficient method. A conversion rate of 30% was already considered to be very efficient. However, swallowing energy directly could allow one to have access into the purest life energy. A conversion rate of 80% would be considered normal in this case. Moreover, one would also be able to avoid the influence which the impurities in food would bring for the human body. This was also how the higher-level life forms in the universe often used to survive. Food was just a means of satisfying the taste buds and was not something that was essential. Such characteristics were recorded even in the myths and legends from Earth's various ancient civilizations. Amongst Huaxia's myths and legends, they were often referred to as fasting. After the human body underwent energy evolution, their breathing would correspond with the universe. The new would supersede the old, changing the intrinsic nature of life itself. The human body would then evolve into a higher level of life form, and the lifespans would naturally be extended. The elite cultivator would have at least a lifespan of 300 years. Feng Lin looked inside his body. His stone monkey gene had suddenly soared up to a maximum point of 10 from 6 at one go. His psychokinesis gene and spirituality gene had both been awakened as well and reached an extremely high point. His vitality had also leaped tremendously to 88.9. This was simply a complete and thorough change. If he could be compared to a fish previously, he was now already a dragon with dragon whiskers and horns. Although he would still be a fish, he would have undergone some transcendent changes, possessing transcendent characteristics, revealing signs of outstanding talent that would sprout out. It would only take one step for him to become a fish that leaped across the dragon's gate, 1, turning into an actual dragon that could roam the heavens. The changes were so tremendous that even Feng Lin was struck dumb. How on earth did this happen? He looked at the glass cabin which had been used for the divine blood ritual. the terrifying cells from the god's blood had already completely disappeared. What was left was only a faint puddle of water, with no signs of blood at all. Feng Lin recalled the remnants of his memories from earlier, and his expression turned weird as a horrifying guess appeared in his heart. Could it be that I have engulfed all of the cells from the god's blood, which caused my genetic potential to increase at a rapid rate and my genes to be strengthened instantly? But how could I have digested such a massive amount of energy so quickly? Many questions floated in Feng Lin's mind, and he felt as if there was a ghost hidden in his body, which came out to disturb him every now and then. This scene made him spooked out. He felt uneasy from the bottom of his heart and tried to recollect his earlier change in detail. An extremely unbridled cry suddenly rang out in his mind. "Heaven and earth give birth to me, Sun Wukong." Feng Lin seemed to have seen a monkey break out from the stone and scream toward the sky with a savage expression. Hereditary memories? Feng Lin thought about it for a moment and immediately shook his head. No, it wasn't that simple. If what he saw was the scene of the monkey being born, he shouldn't be shouting something like "Heaven and earth give birth to me, Sun Wukong." Even the great sage equal to heavens was extremely weak when it was just born. How could it possibly know its name from the future? Then what was this? It was like memories, yet not so. Feng Lin recalled the memories of that soul being in deep slumber. It went through countless years, developing a consciousness, and learned how to take in the essence of the sun and the moon. It then eventually encountered the tribulation of the red tidal waves, and then Sun Wukong eventually broke out from the stone and was born into this world. It was filled with surging viciousness, undisciplined and out of control, capable of turning the three realms into chaos. That red tidal waves had also been destroyed with great ease, wiped out with a single move, and completely engulfed by Sun Wukong. It was as if Sun Wukong had taken some kind of great nourishment. He started to recall all these scenes. The auras emitted by the red tidal waves were one that wiped out all life and engulfed everything. It felt extremely familiar to Feng Lin. Could it be? Earlier on, that unknown domineering consciousness in the cells of the god's blood had invaded his body, causing his consciousness to sink into a state of dead silence. Could it be that they had entered deep into his body, violating the remnant consciousness that Sun Wukong had in his mythological gene? The more Feng Lin thought about it, the more he felt that this was possible. Was it mythological will? Based on the never-ending conjecture toward myths and legends, when the characters became extremely strong and said to have reached the level of paragon phase gods and devils, even their existence itself would have taken on a transcendent characteristic, becoming the embodiment of some kind of power. Each paragon phase gods and devils were unique in the world, being irreplaceable. Their bodies, souls, memories, had all become one, forming an undying and indestructible mythological will that could change the world. Even if they were to turn into dust, as long as they had one last breath left in them, they would be able to recover if they were to encounter the right opportunity. As an unrivaled battle god in Huaxia's myths and legends, Feng Lin would definitely not believe that Sun Wukong hadn't left behind any of its mythological will at all. At the thought of this, he was struck by comprehension. Although the stone monkey gene was only a primeval gene, it was Sun Wukong's starting point after all. Therefore, it would naturally have a bit of Sun Wukong's mythological will left in it. Although there was very little, it still wasn't something which the cells in the god's blood could fight against. The great sage will had initially been in a deep incubation period. If Feng Lin were to rely on himself to awaken it, he would have no idea how long he would take. However, the cells in the god's blood had looked for their own trouble and challenged it, waking up the great sage will. They ended up in a pathetic state while Feng Lin got the better end of this. Feng Lin understood that mythological inheritance wasn't as simple as just being mythological memories. It also included mythological will within. from Nuwa mending the heavens, Hui shooting down the suns, Huafu chasing the sun, Yugong moving the mountain. These characters from myths and legends slowly grew into the paragon phase step by step until they reached the peak, standing above all other living creatures. The paths they had taken were extremely rugged, and when they eventually reached the very top, they reached a magnificent scale that was beyond people's expectations. When mighty force was attributed to a single body, it was possible to shake the sun and the moon, move mountains and rivers, and change the heaven and earth. There was no one that was born as a sacred being, and thus they had the spirit to constantly strive to become stronger. Their will that allowed them to be put through the mill without their wills destroyed even at the point of their death was very moving. If one was able to experience such mythological will, sensing the spirit of ancient gods and devils, they would definitely be able to firm up their hearts and become unwavering, cutting off all restrictions. This was how things were for Feng Lin now. All the terror, bewilderment, and perplexity that he had felt in the past had now been swept clean. It was as if his heart had been cleansed of all dust, completely purified in and out, just like crystals. There was no Bodhi tree, nor was there a mirror. Originally, there is not a single thing, so where does dust alight? He sensed Sun Wukong's powerful never-yielding spirit. A stone was a lifeless object, yet a living flesh and blood could be born from it. How massive of a will was required to achieve this? Thousands of words welled up, turning into one sentence. That was, "Heaven and earth give birth to me, Sun Wukong." Sun Wukong had a powerful physical body that was indestructible, reaching the limits of material items. It was also called Heart Monkey, too, with a strong spirit that could shake the three realms, capable of taking on various forms, and even the power of its idealism was also at a great extreme. Sun Wukong had been the product of the two universes' regulations, materialism and idealism, and contained the universe's deep profoundness. The fact that it was born was already a miracle, and it had unlimited potential. It was also a matter of course that it was able to become a paragon phase god thereafter. However, it could be that the Buddha's interference had unknowingly cut off its future. Regardless, to the current Feng Lin, to be able to take on the path of Sun Wukong was definitely a great matter worth celebrating. Through this fortunate encounter, Feng Lin's comprehension of the genetic formula became deeper. Although the genetic formula was very simple, each part of it entered deep into the intrinsics of the cultivation path of myths and legends, having the most mysterious profoundness. The stone monkey gene was a materialistic gene, capable of strengthening the body, making it impenetrable by blades and spears, and impervious to fire and water. It used materialism to shake the world. The spirit gene was an idealistic gene. Invisible spiritual powers could guide the universe's energies, using idealism to change everything. Without a mighty spirit, it would be impossible for a monkey to be born from a stone. A deep feeling of comprehension filled up Feng Lin's heart. Target has recovered life signals. Wipe him out completely. A cold killing intent was emitted. Feng Lin cast his glance in that direction and saw a burly figure that was like a small mountain pouncing toward him. The scorching light that shot out from his only eye had an extremely high temperature, slicing through everything. The glass cabin was instantly split into two. The figure shot out toward Feng Lin, wanting to slash him up into fragments. Buzz. The void tremored. Feng Lin's eyes burst out in light, and invisible waves extended out from his forehead. The surrounding air amassed together by the pull of an invisible force, condensing and seemingly taking on a material form. They eventually condensed to form a material mirror. Boom! The light was distorted by the mirror and instantly deflected back, hitting the Titan fiercely, causing it to cry out in pain. Feng Lin leaped up and an aura that seemed like he was looking down upon the rest of the world surged in his body. It was as if the great sage, equal to heavens from the myths and legends, had returned to the mortal world. He had been beaten up so badly previously, and it was time to retaliate. The great sage didn't die, but had just arrived late. Right now. The great sage had returned. Chapter 128, Return of the Great Sage. Huh. Feng Lin leaped up, doing a somersault in the air. With a single leap, he managed to reach 30+ meters in height. His body then flipped 180 degrees as he plummeted down like a shooting star, causing the airflow around him to be distorted. The return of the great sage was from beyond the topmost clouds, descending to the mortal world. With a single punch, it felt like the ground below was almost completely shattered. Ka ka ka. Numerous fiery light rays shot over. Feng Lin used the formless Psi-Force to consolidate the water vapor nearby into a mirror-like substance, reflecting the light rays as they dealt heavy damage to the Titan. The psychokinesis gene activated. This was a type of gene that could allow one to shoot out Psi-Force, controlling this formless energy to perform telekinesis. It was an extremely bizarre power. Psi-Force originally was something transformed from mental energy. It allowed the formless mental energy to become a substantial manipulative one. But because of its formless nature, the driving power behind it was extremely weak, and it could at most disturb others. There was no way to truly make it into an effective lethal power that could kill at the user's will. In the past, the interstellar cultivator Feng Lin had encountered in the illusory martial pagoda was simply like this. The Psi-Force of that opponent couldn't be considered strong. Bioxnovel.com. But it was different for Feng Lin's case. His mental gene had been maxed out and surpassed its limits. Once it transformed into Psi-Force, it was like the unending gushing forth of tides, capable of shaking the space. The stone monkey gene plus the power of a mental-type gene, how strong would that be? Feng Lin's life force explosively surged up, and he no longer felt the vitality stat suppression of the Titan. So, this Titan is only at this level? The Great Sage will was a will that denoted courage and fearlessness, as the Great Sage himself dared to wreak havoc in the heavenly courts and was a complete maverick. Even for those lofty deities that could control life and fate, the Great Sage even dared make them dissipate into dust and turn the three realms topsy-turvy. Titans were simply failures that were ousted from the divine throne by the pantheon of Greek gods in their mythology. Why would the Great Sage fear them? Feng Lin experienced the Great Sage will, and right now, he was like an incarnation of the Great Sage himself. Of all the emotions he was feeling, fear wasn't one of them. Hey! Eat my punch. His body fell from high up in the air. Using the momentum brought on by gravity, he gathered the entirety of his strength in his fists. His fists were now like hammers that could flip the sky as they ruthlessly smashed down. Split for me. The punch force could cause even mountains to crumble, exuding a feeling of suppression. The Titan's eyes flickered with flames of his anger. He was like the gigantic god in Greek mythology that carried the heaven on his back. His body was akin to a heavenly pillar as he punched out as well. The two fists then collided. Feng Lin was flung through the air from the impact and had to do many somersaults before he could regain his balance while the Titan's body trembled fiercely. Feng Lin instantly came to a decision. Before the 15 meters tall Titan, he was as tiny and inconsequential like a bug. But now, their strength was already roughly equivalent. The Titan gene was a transcendent gene, allowing the one who awakened it to gain immense might, a steel-like body and the ability to control different energy attacks. There was seemingly no flaws at all, it was strong in every area. But for every power in the universe, being strong all-roundly was impossible. There wasn't a race in this world that was invincible, and there similarly also wouldn't be enemies who were invincible. Naturally, going by this logic, there also wouldn't be a gene that was invincible. The Titan gene might be very well-rounded in all aspects, but each of its abilities wasn't at the peak. For example, the stone monkey gene was only a primeval grade gene, one level lower compared to the Titan gene. However, for the body-strengthening aspect of the stone monkey gene, it was much better than the Titan gene. For example, the invulnerability to sword and spear, and impervious to fire and water. If one wanted to talk about body strengthening, the stone monkey gene wouldn't be inferior to any genes. Feng Lin lunged over once again. He depended on his agility and immense strength, and managed to withstand the Titan's attack for a period of time. What? The Titan was shocked and angered. It felt that this puny bug before its eyes was now different. In the small body of the bug, he could sense an immense might that would cause people to fear. And all of this happened in an instant. In such a short period of time, how did this bug-like existence achieve such an earth-shattering transformation? Despite the Titan being the pinnacle of genetic engineering, it wasn't able to think things through at all. But it was understandable that the Titan wasn't able to think things through. If comparing the base of their mythological genes, how could the Titan be comparable to the great sage equal to heavens? The Titan would just be like a little ant wanting to comprehend the vastness of Leviathan and rock. A light beam shot out from the Titan's single eye, sweeping through the surroundings, causing destruction wherever it passed by. Feng Lin's eyes gleamed sharply. His psi-force gushed forth ferociously, twisting the space and manifesting a vortex that swallowed up the light beam. The light beam had no way to injure Feng Lin. The flames, wind, and lightning were exploding violently. The Titan's single eye gleamed brightly as he unleashed all of his skills. The various types of energy gushed forth, enveloping Feng Lin. Feng Lin didn't evade it. He directly faced this gushing tide-like attack while a cold smile lit up his lips. The Titan was only so powerful? In the legends, the great sage could fly up to the heavens or enter deep into the ground. He was capable of climbing up mountains of blades or descending into an ocean of fire. He could do anything. Although the energy storm being unleashed by the Titan seemed powerful, the degree of intensity wasn't that high. Feng Lin's stone monkey gene was already maxed out. His ability to be impervious to fire and water had been strengthened immensely. He felt no pressure from the energy attacks at all. Bioxnovel.com. He slowly walked out from the energy storm, completely uninjured, with an expression of waning enthusiasm on his face. He initially thought that the Titan would be a strong foe. However, in truth, it was only strong in appearance but weak in reality. But then again, this Titan was created from genetic engineering, and he didn't gain his power from cultivating. The way the Titan was using its gifts was simply too crude and low-class. It only knew how to blindly pour out energy, but it had no idea about how the different energy types would complement or contradict each other. Wind and fire could engulf everything. Lightning and fire would rain down from the sky. Wind and thunder could gather into a storm. Regardless of which combination, the fused effects of two energy types would surely be much more superior compared to a single energy type. Maybe before this, he could just depend on his strength to suppress Feng Lin and seemed invincible. But at this point in time, at a stage where Feng Lin's vitality stats wasn't that far from him, the attacking methods of the Titan seemed to be extremely inferior. Monkey Fist. Feng Lin displayed his movement techniques, agilely evading the attack. This common monkey fist, when unleashed by him, had transformed into something wondrous from rotten. Each of his moves was packed with incredible agility and looked extremely smooth. He abruptly leaped onto the Titan's gigantic body and started running. The great sage was the ancestor of all apes and monkeys. After comprehending the great sage will, Feng Lin's understanding of the monkey fist had reached an unimaginably profound level. He was now simply like a human-shaped monkey. am I really going to go down this path of becoming a monkey? For some reason, Feng Lin suddenly felt a sense of grief and indignation, but his movements didn't slow down. His punch force was like thunder, aiming for the Titan's armpits, throat, chest, targeting all the vital areas, and explosive sounds rang out upon impact. The Titan's hands continued smacking around unceasingly, wanting to smash Feng Lin into meat paste. However, Feng Lin's movements were incomparably smooth. He was constantly dodging around, darting about as he looked for attacking opportunities. The Titan's body was like a mountain. Because of his size, this actually gave Feng Lin a chance to display his agility, allowing him to evade many attacks easily as he could move about freely. The Titan's expression was one of complete rage. He felt that Feng Lin was like a flea that kept jumping about randomly, and he didn't have any way to catch it. For a period of time, the two of them were in a deadlock. But the Titan wasn't stupid. Although it was an artificial creature and didn't have much combat experiences, his intelligence definitely wasn't low. He soon realized that if he wanted to deal with Feng Lin, the first thing he must do was to restrict Feng Lin's movements. The single eye of the Titan flashed with light. Crystals actually started to swiftly form on his skin in massive amounts, resembling a suit of armor. What? Feng Lin couldn't react in time. Some of the crystalline substance stuck to his body, and in just a few seconds, it covered him entirely, transforming him into an ice statue and rendering him immobile. He was trying his best to break free. You have been caught. Die now. The Titan actually let out a burst of maniacal-sounding laughter. His palms slammed over as his expression turned malevolent, wanting to crush Feng Lin before swallowing him. Feng Lin struggled to lift his head and saw the Titan's palm, which resembled a five-finger mountain, approaching him rapidly. His expression was absent-minded. It felt as though he had seen this scene before, a scene that once filled him with despair. Feng Lin's expression then contorted with rage. A baleful aura that was unquenchable by the passage of time rose from the depths of his heart. After that, a snarl of ruthless fury rang out from his mouth. Do you think that you're Buddha Lord Tathagata? Chapter 129, Killing a God. The giant palm and 5 fingers smashed down just like how Buddha Lord Tathagata had wanted to seal Sun Wukong away in the past, making it so that he would never be able to make a comeback. Feng Lin inclined his head. The baleful chi surged within his heart as his anger sprang forth like churning lava in a volcano, wanting to incinerate everything in the human world. Just a mere Titan, do you really think that you are Buddha Lord Tathagata? Feng Lin's heart was filled with anger. However, he couldn't move at all, as his entire body was akin to being frozen solid. The palm covered him completely, ruthlessly smashing down, wanting to crush him flat. This Titan repeated its tricks, wanting to crush Feng Lin like how it did with the green giant before swallowing it up in a single gulp. Creaking sounds echoed out. The Titan's hand exerted more force, causing Feng Lin's bones to creak. It felt like they were on the verge of shattering. Feng Lin was enduring the pain and agony. His baleful aura was as fiery as fire, stimulating the flow of energy in his entire body. How would he be willing to suffer the same fate as the green giant? Open. His expressions contorted. His body trembled violently, and the force actually broke the crystal-like substance into pieces. A mysterious strength suddenly rose from within him, making it so that he managed to push the Titan's hand away. After that, both of Feng Lin's arms were hugging around a thick pillar-like finger of the Titan as he used force and pulled. Gotcha. The finger broke. There wasn't actually that much of a difference in strength between Feng Lin and the Titan. And right now, he focused the entirety of his strength, targeting a finger of the Titan. In this case, how could the Titan resist it? The Titan pulled its hand back and grabbed its broken finger, howling in extreme pain. From the wound, droplets of red blood could be seen flowing out like spring water. It was effective. Since it was effective, Feng Lin naturally wanted to do it again. Feng Lin ruthlessly continued, using the entirety of his strength to break the 4 other fingers on the Titan's left hand. The Titan was in severe pain. It kept shaking its palm violently, wanting to toss Feng Lin down. However, it was easy to invite a guest in and tough to escort a guest out. Feng Lin stabilized himself and hugged the Titan's wrist tightly. He wasn't willing to be thrown off. Since you grabbed me earlier, how can it be so easy for you to drive me away? You can't even be considered as a dueling god, yet you want to be the Buddha Lord? Even using the 5-finger mountain palm. Since this is the case, I'm going to break all of your fingers today. Feng Lin leaped high up into the air, jumping from the Titan's left hand to the right. He then slammed out with the entirety of his power, targeting the ring finger and middle finger of the Titan's right hand and breaking them in a single shot, causing blood to flow like a waterfall. The Titan had its fingers broken in rapid succession and was howling in agony. Feng Lin didn't stop. Regardless of how the Titan tried to stop him, he continuously attacked in a ruthless and sharp manner, breaking all the 10 fingers of the Titan. Now that both of its hands were crippled, the Titan's combat prowess declined sharply. The situation had completely changed. The Titan's body was too gigantic, and its movements were very slow. When facing someone as small as Feng Lin, it was definitely in a severe disadvantage. Feng Lin might be able to use this advantage to injure the Titan, and once enough small injuries accumulated, the Titan might take critical damage and die in a single strike after that. Now that Feng Lin had a plan, a cold smile lit up his lips. So what if the Titan really is a god? Even if there are gods in this world, I shall kill a god today. Wasting no time, Feng Lin acted without mercy. He targeted the Titan's throat, temple, eardrums, all sorts of vital spots as he launched his attacks. Golden Vedra Dragon Claw, Tai Chi Cannon Fist, Sky-Flipping Hammer Imprint. He unleashed all sorts of techniques while the Titan screamed in fury as he got injured more and more. Although the injuries were small, the pain was extremely severe, and this caused the Titan to grow even more violent. However, the Titan's movements were simply too clumsy, and he basically had no way to capture Feng Lin. Feng Lin was like an annoying fly buzzing around while the Titan could do nothing to it. However, Feng Lin wasn't satisfied. After attacking for half a day, this Titan was still akin to a dragon or a tiger and still had robust life force. One could say that although the Titan's body had expanded, his movements had slowed for the price of increasing its endurance and resistance. His thoughts earlier wasn't wrong. He wanted to accumulate small injuries before he tried to wipe out the Titan in a single strike. But he had forgotten one point. He lacked the time, and that was the most critical aspect of all. How long would he need for enough small injuries to accumulate before the Titan who was over 15 meters tall would fall? An hour? A day? Or 3 days and 3 nights? Maybe this plan would eventually succeed in the end, but Feng Lin truly didn't have that much time. The giant pharmaceutical company had already fallen. And outside here, the flames of wars were everywhere. It was very possible that the Mars Revolutionary Army might rush here at any moment. And if they did, things would be extremely dangerous for him. He had to settle this as fast as possible. Feng Lin knew that he didn't have any time to waste. His thoughts churned rapidly as he tried to find a solution. All of a sudden, his heart stirred. He was thinking, what would Sun Wukong have done if he were to also encounter a situation like this? After all, Sun Wukong in the legends was a battle god that fought countless battles in the 3 realms. What had he not experienced before? Maybe he could gain some inspiration from some stories of Sun Wukong. Feng Lin stared at the gigantic body of the Titan, as well as its mouth that was wide open. An idea suddenly flashed through his mind. His silhouette flashed as he reached for one of the broken fingers. He then ruthlessly pulled it, causing the Titan's finger to be pulled away. The Titan was in so much pain that its mouth opened even wider in a scream. It was like a black hole, and hot air streamed out of it. Good opportunity. Feng Lin didn't retreat, but chose to advance instead. He leaped into the open mouth of the Titan. Gurgling sounds rang out. Upon sensing a foreign object entering its throat, the Titan's expression drastically changed. It instantly clasped its hands around its throat as it coughed. It felt an intense pain in its throat. It threw its head back and spat out a mouthful of boiling hot lava-like blood. At this moment, Feng Lin had already entered a passageway that was slightly warm and humid. The muscled walls spasmed, and the fishy smell of sticky liquid filled the atmosphere, dripping down onto him, containing an extremely powerful corrosive ability. The evil smell of rot could be sensed in the air. Feng Lin held his breath, knowing that he was still in the throat area of the Titan. I simply don't believe that the interior of your body would be as tough as your skin. Regardless of which living creatures, their internal organs would always be a weak point. Feng Lin's eyes were like ice as he stabbed forth with his saber-like hand. The formless air force blasted out sharply, forming air blades akin to divine swords that flew out of their sheaths, embedding themselves deep inside the meat walls. Feng Lin's face turned red from the energy exertion, but he didn't stop. His hand once again sliced down like a saber. Everywhere the saber force passed by, a shocking wound would appear in the meat wall, causing blood to flood out like a torrent. As for Feng Lin, he endured the scorching blood and dug deep into the wound, continuing to drill his way into the Titan's interior where he intended to wreak more havoc. Bang, bang, bang. The 7 apertures of the Titan were bleeding. The intense pain caused the Titan to go crazy, smashing the area around it, which caused thunderous sounds to ring out. Its chest heaved and resembled a huge meat bag, and there appeared to be a little mouse wriggling around it. From time to time, the mouse would move into its lungs, its liver, and then its stomach. For every inner organ visited by the mouse, the Titan would cry in pain as it coughed out blood. Its initially vigorous aura gradually weakened. And just when the Titan was about to die, its face suddenly turned red as it let out a death cry. A moment later, all signs of vitality faded away as the Titan became immobile. Boom! The corpse exploded as a human drenched in blood exited from there. In one of his hands, a red-colored sparkling sphere about half a meter cubic in volume could be seen. Boom, boom, boom. The beats were like drum echoes and as reverberating as thunder. Surprisingly, this sphere was like a heart. It was pulsing with strength. Feng Lin's entire body was drenched by that blood, and his original appearance was completely hidden. Only his eyes were as cold as ice. So what if the Titan is a god? Wasn't the Titan killed by me in the end? Chapter 130, The Furnace Fire Tempering the Heart Monkey. Boom! The Titan's body, that was akin to a small mountain, collapsed onto the ground, causing intense tremors. Feng Lin stood at his original location. Fresh blood dripped from his body, and he was like an Azura that killed his way out of an ocean of blood. His entire being radiated an extremely baleful aura that caused others to not dare to get close to him. Boom, boom, boom. The half-a-meter sphere, which sparkled with a deep red color, seemed to be forged from crystals. It was like a heart that continued to beat in his hands. In truth, this was a heart. The Titan's heart. Feng Lin had plucked out the Titan's heart. This was how he could have delivered a critical attack, bringing about the Titan's death with a single strike. Lowering his head and staring at the Titan's heart, he could sense the immense amount of energy contained within. It felt like there was an atomic bomb in his hands. There seemed to be no energy reaction just from looking at it. But once the energy within erupted forth, it had the power to destroy the heavens and earth. Was this the organ of a transcendent being? Feng Lin thought of a common knowledge that all cultivators would know. Once a cultivator reached the elite cultivator realm, they would officially begin to step on the path leading to transcendent beings. Their bodies would slowly undergo energy evolution. Also, there was a sequence when the human body underwent this process. Often, the first organ to finish the energy evolution process would become the future core of the cultivator's energy, potential, and talent. In the language of the cultivation world, that organ was named transcendent organ. Clearly, this Titan's heart was the Titan's transcendent organ. It was an energy core that had provided the Titan with its might. One could say that since Feng Lin had obtained this, it meant that he had obtained the greater part of the Titan's might. But now, he had just stepped on the pathway of cultivation, and his horizons were still shallow. After probing the heart for half a day, he still had no idea what he could do with this Titan's heart. This Titan's heart was definitely not an ordinary object. It should have a wide variety of uses to it. Although he couldn't use it now, it didn't mean that he wouldn't be able to use it in the future. Bioxnovel.com. For such a wondrous item, there would naturally be many benefits that came along with it. It might even be able to enhance his foundation. Feng Lin kept it carefully. He would spend more time to slowly decipher its mysteries in the future. His gaze swept over. This space was now completely silent with corpses everywhere, emitting the stink of fumes. The people of the giant pharmaceutical company had been completely exterminated by him. It was about time for him to leave. However, Feng Lin was still contemplating. He didn't leave immediately but started searching carefully around the surroundings instead. He knew that this place was a mythological ruin left behind by the immortal furnace sect. There might be even more inheritances hidden here. In any case, there was temporarily no commotion outside. Thus, he would have time to quickly do a search through before the people from Mars' Revolutionary Army arrived. He expended so much effort to come here. If he really left empty-handed, wouldn't that be extremely unsatisfying? How would anyone be willing to do so? Feng Lin was naturally no exception as well. He started searching from the periphery of this place, moving at a fast speed and soon completed a circle around the perimeter. He discovered that this space was circular in shape. It was like the interior of an alloy sphere. Dang, dang, dang. Feng Lin's finger rapped the walls and soon discovered that other than the passageway in here, there seemed to be 8 more doors in the surroundings, but they were hidden up, covered completely with metal. Feng Lin sent out his mental energy and to his surprise, he discovered that the boiling lava of Mars's core lay just outside of these doors. Not only there, but the place he was in, was actually a gigantic spherical object floating in the center of the lava. This strange spherical object gave Feng Lin a sense of familiarity. It felt like he knew this from somewhere. Strange, I've never been here before. Why would there be a sense of familiarity? Feng Lin didn't feel that his sense was wrong. His mental energy and memory abilities were so powerful. It was impossible for him to make a mistake. Since he had a sense of familiarity, it most probably meant that either he had been here before, or he had seen a similar scene once in the past. But where had he seen this before? Feng Lin's eyes gleamed with an inner fire as he suddenly remembered. Back then when he had used his mental energy to probe the tiny crystal life forms of the ancient divine medicine, he had seen a scene from the ancient past. The scene where he himself was a pill and was being refined and tempered by the fires in the furnace was extremely similar to what he was seeing now. Pill concoction furnace? Feng Lin's heart trembled. This circular space he was in seemed to be within a furnace. Although it was extremely gigantic, the shape was undoubtedly that of a Chinese ancient furnace. In the legends, it's said that some treasures have the ability to turn smaller or larger at will. Could this really be a furnace? The possibility is very high. Although it seemed somewhat incredible, Feng Lin felt that this should be true. Didn't the giant pharmaceutical company find the Grand Mist Fate pill in here? Shouldn't it be logical that a magic pill could be found inside a pill concoction furnace? This furnace actually had always been borrowing the fire of Mars's core to refine things. Most probably, this could also be considered an extremely valuable treasure in the Furnace Immortal sect. In that case, why don't I just take it with me? Feng Lin's heart stirred, feeling that his thinking was pretty reasonable. Out of all the alchemy techniques he had received from the inheritance memory, there was one most basic technique that was used to tame a furnace and gain its recognition. If he was able to depend on this technique to tame this furnace and take it with him, his foundation would definitely be enhanced. Also, his alchemy techniques would no longer be like a dragon-slaying art, he would have a use for them. Since Feng Lin thought about doing this, he didn't hesitate and immediately tried it out. Both of his hands formed gestures and were like butterflies dancing in the wind, causing those who saw it to fall in a daze. His mental energy gushed forth, flowing from his gestures and generating formless ripples that entered the furnace. Gradually, it formed a connection to his psyche. Right now, as long as Feng Lin willed it, he would be able to display the power of this furnace. It was effective indeed. Feng Lin felt joy in his heart. He could sense that he was taming this furnace at a quick speed. However, before he could feel too happy, his sharp ears detected footsteps in space above him. More and more footsteps sounded out, and there seemed to be a large group of people entering the laboratory outside this hidden space. He was currently in the midst of taming the furnace. It was basically impossible for him to evade them. All of a sudden, the passageway leading to this space was knocked open as a number of soldiers wearing the Mars Revolutionary Army's uniform surged in. They finally find their way here? Feng Lin didn't panic. He calmly stared at the soldiers as he formulated a plan. Quickly look, the people from the giant pharmaceutical company who escaped are all here. They actually were all killed. Who did this? Look over there. Be careful, there's still someone who isn't dead. If he resists, kill him immediately. A shout rang out, and those soldiers instantly turned their ray guns toward Feng Lin. As long as Feng Lin made any suspicious movements, his body would soon be riddled with holes from their fire. A military officer walked to the front. He stared at the corpses around here, the gigantic body of the Titan, and Frank's corpse. A shocked expression could be seen all around his face. He then cast another glance at Feng Lin, who was completely uninjured yet was covered in blood as killing intent flickered in his eyes. He coldly commanded, "Kill him." Swish. The light beams from the ray guns shot through the air, blasting into Feng Lin's back. Yet for some reason, all the beam attacks dissipated silently. What? Those soldiers exclaimed in shock and confusion. Feng Lin didn't move. He only stared at them and coldly spoke, "Let the fires be lit." His hands formed more gestures and pointed at a random location, focusing all his mental energies there. Rumble. The 8 doors of the furnace suddenly opened as the boiling lava flooded in. The temperature then soared rapidly as this place became a fiery hell. Fire, fire, fire. Flames could be seen being ignited in all directions. This place was completely transformed into an ocean of fire, engulfing those soldiers completely. Those soldiers didn't even have time to scream, and they were incinerated by the flames that swiftly reached above 1,000 degrees Celsius. Not even their bones remained. The lava continued pouring in, also engulfing Feng Lin. Feng Lin's figure naturally curled up. His skin glowed with a faint jade-like luster as stone fragments akin to eggshells formed around him protectively. It was like he had completely reverted back to the time before Sun Wukong was born, when Sun Wukong was still inside a stone egg. This stone egg bobbed up and down in the ocean of fire as the surrounding flames continued to refine and temper it, ferreting all impurities from it until it reached a purified state. The furnace fire tempering the heart monkey.